Praise God. Okay. You know, in the English language, especially in our churchese, we often throw out words without really knowing what they mean. I was a mom before I figured out what grace was. It's when the boys were in junior Bible quiz and they had to have the definition. I'm like, oh, so that's what grace is. All my life I'd heard about grace, mercy, righteousness, all those churchese words that you think about, honor, and you think about, I was thinking about honor the other day. I have a friend that I was talking to, and they're a minister, but they work with this really well-known minister, and this well-known, and they're close enough that they know what goes on behind the scenes, and they know there's not always this integrity behind the scenes. And I'm like, well, why do you continue to work with him? Well, I honor him because he's a man of God. And I'm like, honor doesn't necessarily mean you agree with everything or condone them. You can honor the position. You don't have to agree with them, because it comes to a point where you're going to be participating in their sin. That's not honor. And so I think, so many times we think about honor in different ways. Honor doesn't necessarily mean agreement. Honor doesn't mean that. Just like submission doesn't mean that you're a doormat. So we think about these words, but we don't really know exactly what they mean. Or we just kind of gloss over them, thinking that we know what they mean. But how, if we don't really know, how do we know how to properly put them into use? Or how do we know when we're growing in them? Or when we've arrived? There'll be a point when we've actually arrived. But unless we know what we're arriving to, we won't know when we've arrived. If you're going down the road and you don't know what the destination is, you don't know when you got there. And you can just drive forever. I'd rather know my destination. Anyway, so tonight, we're not going to visit the word maturity. I always pick some fun ones. Anyway, we're going to visit the word maturity. The Greek word teleos means completeness, but it's translated in the scriptures as mature or perfect. Okay, so a lot of times in the scripture, when you see the word perfect, it really means complete. It means mature. Jesus said in Matthew 5:48, "Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect." It means, therefore you shall be mature. So perfection and maturity is an achievable goal. If it wasn't, Jesus wouldn't say be perfect. Okay, so it is an achievable goal. So let's look at some of the dictionary definitions. It's kind of all over the board, so I'll just read a few. But some of the definitions is to have slow, careful consideration. It means having completed a natural growth and development. It's having attained a final desired state. And it's relating to a condition of full development. Okay, that kind of makes sense. One person defined it as the capacity to respond positively to a given circumstance, control, and manage one's emotions. Okay. Another one said, have a certain level of understanding and can determine how to approach and cope with challenging situations. So I think all these definitions are correct, plus. But one thing that we'll notice in all these definitions, maturity is not about age. I think we all know some really mature children. And we probably all know some really immature adults. Right? So I won't name names, but anyway. Jonathan, no. Johnny's back there making faces at me. Okay. So we understand that, but it's not about age. It's about this growth. So maturity really is about growth. It's about development. It's that purposeful, intentional change of our being. Okay? That makes sense so far? Okay. So we're just going to kind of delve in this. This is by no means an exhaustible study. Go study for yourself, because this is just a little bit, just to think, cause us to try and start thinking about it. So Ephesians 4, verse 11 says, and he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Now that to a perfect man in the Amplified says that we might arrive at really mature manhood, the completeness of personality, which is nothing less than the standard height of Christ's own perfection. So one of the main purposes of the fivefold, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher, is to bring believers to maturity. Okay? In Colossians chapter 1, verse 28, Paul said, "Him we preach, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, that we may present every man perfect in Christ Jesus." Now, if we go to the verse before that, he says, "To them, to the saints, God willed to make known what are the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory." So by focusing on Christ in the believer, the hope of glory, we can bring believers to maturity by preaching, by warning them, which is exhortation, cautioning, admonishing, and teaching in all wisdom. So preaching, teaching, and admonishing brings people to maturity. And so that's what we need to understand, that if you're a minister, that's our responsibility. We're bringing everybody to maturity. If you're not a minister and you're a believer that needs to come to maturity, you need to be listening to the preaching, listening to the teaching, and listening to the warnings. Listening and doing, but we'll go on to that. Anyway, so if we go back to Ephesians 4, Paul goes on to say in verse 14 that we should no longer be children. Now that word children is nepios. It means an infant or a little child, but it also means simple-minded. It means immature. So that could really read, we should no longer be immature. Well, right before that, Paul was saying we need to come into the fullness of maturity, to the perfect man, to the mature man. And then he goes on, we should no longer be immature. Okay? How? Tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting, but speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ. So, we see in this verse that immature ones are tossed to and fro. They're not planted on any kind of firm foundation. Okay, mature ones have principal values to guide them, to keep them consistent. Okay, these values help them make wise decisions. Okay, it also helps them to be more proactive than reactive. So we're not tossed to and fro. We think about it, we plan it, we stay strong, we stay firm. James was talking about a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Well, if you're not firmly planted on a foundation, you're not stable. You're unstable. Even Jesus talked about that if we're not building our house on the rock, we're building on sand. And at the first storm, the house is going to come down. So we're no longer immature. We know what kind of rock to plant on. We know what kind of house to build. We've been looking at a lot of restorations about houses and stuff. You don't want to build on shaky land. You don't want to build on a fault. You don't want to build on mud. You don't want to build on sand. You want to build on a firm foundation. So as a mature one, you have to know where to build. Immature ones, it goes on, are carried about with every wind of doctrine. I think we all have seen people who follow this minister or that prophet, go this way or that way, as long as they like what they're saying, as long as it meets what they want, until they find somebody else that's more exciting. Then it's like, whoop, here we go, Or how many people have followed that great grace message because it appealed to their tickling ears? They could behave any way they wanted. There was no responsibility. Okay? It's just going whichever way of doctrine, whichever way they want to go that sounds good to them. Mature ones, they're open-minded to new things, and they're open-minded at looking at things from new perspectives, but they choose wisdom, and they think things through before jumping headfirst into it. Okay, they go back again to their values. They go back again to their non-negotiables. They have things to weigh these against, to prove what is true, to prove what is correct, and is right in the eyes of God. You know, I've had people come to my house. I've had people sit at my desk. I've had people sit in a restaurant, wherever, several times. And they agree that whatever doctrine, whatever idea that they were following was against what the Bible says. But they were going to go and follow it anyway because it appealed to their emotional base. It's like, I like it. It feels good. It feels right. Whatever. But the just don't live by feelings. We live by faith, and faith in the Word. A mature believer will automatically reject anything that's against the Word. Okay, if it's no matter how pleasant it seems, how rewarding it seems, the mature believer knows what the truth is, and they follow the truth. Okay. Again, in Philippians 4:14, it goes on. It says, "Immature ones fall for the trickery of men." Mature ones easily accept the fact that they don't know everything. You know, I don't know everything. I don't know, but they're willing to learn. They're willing to learn from others, even others that they may not even think that understand. But Holy Spirit can work through anybody. So a mature one will be open to truth. However, they're discerning, and they see no point in acting without thinking. Okay? So a mature one will judge everything. The Bereans were considered wise because they went and they searched the scriptures to find out if all this was true. Okay? And we need the mature ones are those who will search the scriptures. Is this true? Is this not true? Okay? Immature ones succumb to the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting, as what the Bible says. But the Amplified translates it, in every shifting form of trickery, in inventing errors to mislead. So it means they fall for every deceitful plot, for everything that is even meant to trick them. They'll fall for it. Again, mature ones never claim to have all the answers. So they'll willingly consult those who are more knowledgeable before jumping into any new thing. Okay? So it's not a bad thing to say, I don't know. It's not a bad thing to ask other people. In fact, Proverbs says in 3 different areas, actually, but in Proverbs 11:14, where there is no counsel, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So it's better to ask a whole bunch of people and find out the counsel of a bunch of people than to try and say, I know it all, and fall. So a mature one has no problem saying, I need to ask. I need to find out the truth. Because truth is much more important than any kind of pride. Okay? So then, in verse 15, Paul adds, speaking the truth in love. Now, mature ones have excellent and honest communication. When I say excellent, I don't mean proper grammar. Okay? It doesn't always have to be proper grammar. It doesn't always have to be, every word perfect. But that excellence means it's truthful. It's honest. It's saying what the Holy Spirit's telling you to say. It's that excellence in that. They understand how to communicate with authority without resorting to manipulation or control. Okay? So mature ones know the authority, they walk in it, and they can communicate that authority. Mature ones understand the importance of speaking the truth in love, even if it's difficult. Remember, one of the ways that we bring believers into maturity is to warn, admonish, exhort, and caution. That's not always easy, right? Ezekiel 3, starting at verse 20, says, "Again, when a righteous man turns from his righteousness and commits iniquity, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die, because you did not give him warning. He shall die in his sin, and his righteousness which he has done shall not be remembered, but his blood I will require at your hand." This is God talking to Ezekiel, calling Ezekiel into his calling. And verse 21 says, "Nevertheless, if you warn the righteous man that the righteous should not sin, and he does not sin, he shall surely live, because he took the warning. Also, you will have delivered your soul." So it's not always easy to confront someone with a word of admonishment, but a mature one cares more about the state of the other person than about their own comfort or ease. Okay? It's more important that one person is saved from hell than I'm comfortable staying in my own little place, my own little room. Okay? Now, the key is confront in love. Okay? So it's imperative that there's love there. It's imperative that you do it in the correct manner, not just, anyway. But there's that, but it is part of being mature that you're willing to confront somebody in that. Good, whether it's, and in confronting, it could be something, you did this, I saw it, it was good. You know, confrontation doesn't always have to be discipline. It can be a good thing, okay? But being able to communicate properly with the right tone, with the right body language and words, so all the time, is extremely difficult. So communication is not just the words that you're speaking. It's the tone that you're saying it in. It's your body language as you're sitting there or standing there. So all that is your communication. And if you're and being able to do that properly all the time is quite difficult. In fact, James says in chapter 3, verse 2, "For we all stumble in many ways and many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able to also to bridle the whole body." So James is like, if you know how to control your tongue, if you know how to communicate properly all the time, you're there, you're mature, you're fine. Okay? But not only because if you can control your tongue, you can control your whole body. That doesn't mean that we're always perfect, but the mature ones will always strive to communicate in love and to make sure that they're being understood in the manner intended. You know, so communication is not just about saying the words, it's about making sure you're understood. The mature ones would rather humble themselves to make sure everyone is on the same page rather than keeping on for their own pleasure of hearing the words. Okay, so it's more important that a person understands what's being said than how you're saying. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm trying to make, okay? So it's a characteristic of maturity to be able to place others' needs and interests before your own. Romans 12, verse 10 says, "Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor, giving preference to one another." Okay, this means what we're talking about. It's telling them, saying hard things, but it also means a lot of other things too. It means celebrating their successes without being jealous. Okay, some of the stuff we think, oh, this is what we've always been taught. Well, yeah, but it's also a sign of maturity. It's maintaining commitments. You know, when you're placing other people's needs in front of your own, you're maintaining your commitments because their time and their presence is important to you. It's keeping promises. It's sacrificing your own likes and dislikes for the betterment of others and taking interest in their well-being. It's treating others with respect. all these things. I mean, we've talked about this during the submission, with honor, with respect. We talked about these in all these different teachings, but there also are characteristics of maturity. Okay? James 1:4 is a verse that around here we quote a lot, but it's true in this situation too. It says, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." So the scriptures indicate that maturity leads us to completeness, to lacking nothing. That means there's a reason for us to become mature. It's much easier to be childish all the time. It's much easier to say, I don't want to adult. I don't want to grow up. But in that maturity, we become complete, lacking nothing. And James says that patience is the key. Now, patience is a huge characteristic of maturity. Okay? Patience is basically getting off the roller coaster, where you're up one day, down the next. Okay? It's remaining constant. It's having control over your emotions. And I'm not just talking about, control your anger. Let's also control your worry. Control how you're feeling today. Or, you can be happy because happiness is a choice. Joy is a choice. You can act like you're sad and you can become sad. There's clinical depression and all that stuff, and I understand all that. I was there, but I also know there's healing. But there's also, even in depression, there's the roller coaster. And in maturity, there's not that. It's that constant. It's projecting a positive demeanor. Projecting means you're showing that, whether you're feeling it or not. That's a choice. Okay? And appearing so calm and relaxed that others around you will instinctively relax. Have you ever been in the middle of a crisis? Like a major crisis, and everybody's going ballistic, and you want to go ballistic too? And yet you're the one that says, oh, wait a minute, let's just calm down. Peace. It's okay. And because you projecting that peace, because you're projecting that positive demeanor, everybody else suddenly becomes calm. Now, you can join in the fray, and you can get just as ballistic as they are, and you can get just as scared, and you can scream your head off just like they are. It's not do anything. It doesn't prove anything. But the mature ones can be the leader even in a crisis. Okay? A mature one does not allow criticism, flattery, or compliments to sway in any way. And sometimes that's hard, but it's true. You cannot, whether it's criticism or whether it's flattery, they both can sway you, but mature ones will not be swayed by that. Because you have to realize that both criticism and compliments are subjective and based on the individual giving them and their unique opinions. To me, the only opinion that should matter is our Father in heaven. And if you're married, your spouse. Just because. But you can't allow those things to sway you. Now, mature ones will embrace constructive criticism. Okay? And they'll even express gratitude. But the key is constructive criticism. Because that means you're wanting to embrace that and you're wanting to change. So you're willing to hear the constructive part. Mature ones have self-acceptance. Your confidence in themselves. A mature one will embrace who God made them to be. And see, that's one thing that we teach a lot around here. We say, God made each of us individuals. He created us each unique. We're not like the other. There's a reason for it. But then when rubber meets the road, we think, well, I'm not like them, or they're not like me. They're not supposed to be, and you're not supposed to be. You have to accept that God created you for who you are. Does that mean you can't change? No, you can become better. We should all learn and achieve and strive to be better. But you have to accept the fact that God made you who you are and be comfortable with that. It's okay. Okay? But while at the same time being comfortable with ourselves, we have to know our limitations. And we have to not be afraid to ask for help. It's okay that I'm not that good at art. Steve is. It's okay that I'm not really great at details because Vicky is. I can rely on those around me because I know their strengths, and their strengths will balance out my weaknesses if I allow them to. And a mature one is not put off by that. They're not, I'm trying to think of the right word. Threatened. Thank you. They're not threatened by that. You don't have to worry about somebody upstaging you, because it's not about you're being better than somebody or somebody being better than you. We're all part of the same body. And so we can relax in that. But the difference with mature ones is that they desire to change, to become better, to improve ourselves, but for the purpose of becoming the complete one that God wants us to be. God created us, and then he said, go be fruitful and multiply. He says, go make it better. Well, he created you. Now go make it better. It's the same thing. But we make ourselves better to complement God, to get into our position in the kingdom, not to fit in. Not to make others happy. Because so many times we think, well, we got to change so I can make somebody else happy. Steve's like, I need to make you happy. No, you can't make me happy. That's not your job. My job is, to be happy. Steve's job is to be the best person that God's called him to be. And so we always try and do what God hasn't called us to. Or we try and fit in. Why should we try and fit in when God has made us unique? And if we're trying to fit in, then we're all trying to be the same. Then we're all cookie cutters. Then where's the church? And who will balance the other one out if we're all being the same? If we're all yes men, then we're just not going to. Anyway, I keep thinking of somebody that surrounds themselves with yes men. If you surround yourself with yes people all the time, then your word stands and you're going to get into a lot of error. The true leaders, and if you really study leadership, the true leaders want those around them that will tell them the truth and will say no. They'll say, I don't think that's the right way we should go. This is another option. Because yes, people always say, well, let's go that way. And that might not be the best option. So as believers, as mature ones, we don't need to try and fit in. We need to say, Lord, show me through my eyes how you see the situation. Because if I see it this way, and Ann sees it this way, and Laura sees it this way, then we put all those together and we come up with the perfect vision of what God wants to happen. It won't contradict, because the Holy Spirit won't contradict each other. If it does contradict, then we need to go back to the prayer room. But as mature ones, we don't need to be threatened by somebody saying something different. It's not about being different. It's about saying, can we do this better? Is this a better way of doing it? If it's not, then the other person should be mature enough to say, okay, I'm wrong. I'll back off. It's no big deal. Because we need to understand we're all in this for the kingdom. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing mature ones need to understand when they need to rest, when they need to recharge, and when they need to unwind. And that's a biggie for me. Because you have to go, 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 go. But if you're always going and you never take time to rest or recharge, you're going to burn out. If you're always going, 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 and you never unwind, at some point that spring is going to sprung. Usually at a time you don't want it to. And usually in a manner that's not appropriate. So, a mature one knows when it's time to say, hey, I got to step back. I got to take a day off. I have to rest. Yeah, I have to, in my terminology, I got to veg. You know? And so, and that's okay. See, mature ones will never take advantage over another one. They never take people or things for granted, but they always walk with a grateful heart. Okay? So because you're mature, most of the time mature ones are leaders, or they have more confidence, and so it's very easy to take advantage of someone who's not that confident, or take advantage of somebody who's not there. But as a mature one, you won't. Okay, you'll love them and want them to grow, and be grateful for them, because as you're helping somebody else to grow, guess what? You're giving into them. You can't help but receive. That's the law of the kingdom. Okay, so Psalms 101, verse 2 says, "I will behave wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when will you come to me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I will set nothing wicked before my eyes." See, mature ones will walk with wisdom at all times. They are careful to do what's right, whether in public or in private, whether everybody's watching or nobody's watching. A mature one doesn't care. They're not doing it for show. They're doing it because it's right. Okay? And they're very careful to guard their gates. I'll put no wicked thing before my eyes. It means I'm not going to see something that I shouldn't see. I'm not going to hear anything that I don't need to hear. It's that guarding the gates. And also part of that is knowing when it's okay. You know, right now it's okay to pay attention to this. But right now but I'm guarding myself, so maybe later on it's not. The best way I know to explain this is example for me. If I watch something on TV right before I go to sleep, I can pretty much dream about it. The other night, we were watching Mountain Men, and this guy was going and hunting Kodiak bears. Guess what I dreamed about? Bears were hunting me. All night long, okay? So now, could I watch that? I could watch that in the middle of the day, and probably if I was in the right frame of mind, I can watch that at night without it bothering me. But if I'm extra tired, if something's bothering me, that bear that's chasing me becomes my problem. And here we go. You know, so it's okay to know when it's okay to watch something and when it's okay not to. Okay? When it's okay to listen to something, when it's okay not to. I mean, in this world, right, especially right now, we're hearing all kinds of stuff. Stuff that can weigh you down. You're hearing all about right now, the big thing is the child trafficking. Okay? Is it true? Yes. Do we need to talk about it? Yes. Do we need to talk about it right before we go to sleep? Nope. There's appropriate times to pay attention to it, and there's appropriate times not to. So, and as mature ones, we need to discern that, and we need to understand that. Okay? Now, mature ones also will apply the knowledge they've learned. They have an awareness of themselves and their surroundings. You know, I was thinking about this, and I started thinking about a child. They never want to sit still. They're always up, wanting to move. They have to learn to sit still. They have to learn manners. They have to learn protocol. I mean, there's a reason why you guys are sitting here still in church listening or in service listening, because you've been taught to sit still. at some point in your life. Because I've been to services where people don't sit still, and they're walking around, and they're talking, and they're doing everything else while the minister is trying to preach. It's very distracting, but it's okay. They haven't been taught. Okay? But we have to learn that. We have to learn to be still. Ephesians 2:6 says, and Christ raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus. Okay? We were made to sit together. We were taught to sit on the throne with Jesus. We were taught to reign from the throne down. Right? We were taught that we're seated with Christ in heavenly places, and we were from up there. But how many times, as soon as the war happens, or as soon as the excitement hits, do we jump up and start looking from the earth's perspective up again? Okay? Maturity says we need to sit still, stay in our place, and rule from the throne. Not come jumping up and going back down. How many times do we want to do things our way rather than follow heaven's protocols? Yeah? If you're mature, you understand, no, we got to follow these protocols. There's a reason for it. And as a mature one, I don't want to be put out of the room again. Okay? So, but as a child, you're put out of the room. If you're not doing protocol, if you're being distracted, what happens? Go play outside. But the mature ones sit around the council chamber and sit around the council tables because they understand protocol. So as maturity comes, then we're more aware of our surroundings, and we're more prepared to follow through with what we need to in those circumstances. Does that make sense? Okay. So maturity comes with purpose. There's a purpose for what we do. And the more mature we become, the more we understand that purpose. Whether it's to be still and sit still and pay attention, or whether it's to do what the Lord's telling us to do, whatever it is, we know that there's a purpose. And all the way through that purpose, mature ones keep a positive attitude. Avoid excessive complaining. That's always a joy of joys. But think about it. As we're mature, we keep that positive attitude and take responsibility for our own life, our own values, and our own attitudes. You know, we can blame everybody from here to Timbuktu, but when push comes to shove, we're the ones responsible for our lives, and we're the one responsible for what we believe, and we're the one responsible for our attitudes in going through it. So we have to take that responsibility. But most of all, mature ones seek wisdom. Okay? They're continually learning. And then they apply what they learn. So they do what they learn. James 1 verse 22 says, "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourself. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the word, this one will be blessed in what he does." So it's not the one who just hears that's blessed. In fact, it's not the one who hears. It's the one who does that's blessed. So we can be mature in some areas and immature in the other areas. But even then, a characteristic of maturity is to recognize that and do something about it. Okay? So we're always endeavoring to change, but we're endeavoring to be doers of the word. So then when Paul goes back, if we go back to Ephesians 4, Paul goes on in verse, we'll just start 15. "But speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. So we should strive to grow up in all things. It doesn't say just some things. It doesn't just say, well, I'm not pick and choose what I want to be mature in. It says we need to grow up in all things into Christ, so that we're always focusing on Christ. We're always focusing on Jesus. We're always knowing that we're part of his body. And by becoming mature, we're becoming more a part, being melded more into him. And then when we're doing that, we'll join with other believers to come into the fullness of the kingdom. And by doing that, we're doing all things in love. So the mature ones is the ones who can walk in love and to walk in the fullness of the kingdom and in the fullness of Christ. Amen? So that's just a little bit to think about. And as we press into this, remember, maturity is not a sweet by and by thing. It's not going to happen. You can't say, well, I'll be mature when I die in the sweet by and by. We're to be matured now, in this time, in this earth. We are to grow now, and we are to strive for that now, because now is the kingdom. And now is what we need to be searching and doing. So let's be hearers, be doers of the word, not hearers only. Right? Amen? So be blessed.